I feel I need to clear up this one major misconception. Just because a bus service is short doesn't necessarily mean that it is suited for bendy buses. I'm not talking about road restrictions. I'm talking about like passenger demand patterns. So in the case of like 285, most people, I mean some of them they alight at West Coast, but most of them they are bound for like the industrial estate at Pannan anyway. So because it's kind of like end-to-end demand, that's why 285 you don't really have to put bendies on that service despite it being relatively short. The same goes for 334 where it's like end-to-end demand and not like demand at the intermediate stops. I'm not saying there's no demand at the intermediate stops. I'm just saying that like most people they take end to end, and conversely for longer services, just because a bus service is long or uses the expressway or whatever doesn't necessarily mean that it is suited for double deckers. I will explain why. And this is probably also another reason as to explain why for the new upcoming electric bendy buses, the MAN NLC 18E, 969, they're like keen to trial it on 969. I'm not saying it'll stick on 969 forever. It's just they have expressed their interest in trialing it on 969. And there is nothing wrong with it. It's just meant as a stress test, full load, be it idling at the neighborhood areas like Yishun or Woodlands, or full load. It's like a fully loaded bus on the expressway and see how well the electric bendy bus can actually cope at full load. That's like the main reasons, but now I'm gonna explain the route differences between like let's say 858 and 969. Because I have already explained this in like the previous video. I have seen a lot of like enthusiasts, they just straight up tunnel vision on saying, oh, 858 should be run with double deckers just because, oh, it's so-called long distance from Yishun to Changi Airport. But in the previous video, I've already said that like, look at the intermediate stops, such as Jalan Kayu, Punggol TP bus stop, where there's a lot of like board alight, board alight, board alight commuting patterns. I've already like said that many times in like the previous video, but right now I'm gonna compare 858 with 969. But this time let's go the reverse order. This one has Changi Airport, PTB, 312, and Airport Boulevard as well. I'm gonna omit that. And then there is Punggol TPE bus stop. This one has Jalan Kayu. Going a little bit macro view again. Khatib. Yishun Central 2. Yishun MRT. Chongpang. Sembawang Shopping Center. Sembawang MRT in itself. Gambas. Woodlands Avenue 9 and 4. Whereas 969, if you were to list them down, okay, maybe I'll just compare it as we go along. Tampines. Anyway, I'm just comparing now. So Changi Airport has like board alight, board alight, board alight. Whereas 969, it's mostly all boarding or all alighting because this is like the actual terminal. And then there's also Tampines Concourse as well. You might see a lot of like alighting action going on here, or maybe in the future, Tampines North as well. So this thing, Concourse and North, it's kind of like an equivalent to these two, like in a way. I'm not saying exactly, but in a way. And then there is TP bus stop as well. This one doesn't go Jalan Kayu. It has never been to Jalan Kayu ever since its introduction. Then there is Khatib. There is no Khoo Teck Puat Hospital. There is Yishun. There is Chongpang. And then there is an express sector, no, not really express, but it's like a kind of a, it's like a semi-express sector along Gambas, then to Woodlands Avenue 7, Admiralty, and then back to Woodlands Avenue 7 again, then Woodlands. I don't blame you if, like, at first glance you say that, like, okay, when you compare stuff like Khatib Yishun versus Khatib Kutekpat Hospital Yishun, and the lack of Sembawang and Gambas area, as in the industrial estate that's near Sembawang Way, the lack of it for 969. If you compare it that way and then you say that, like, okay, 969 has like a higher double-decker bus suitability ranking as compared to like 858, then yes, I can agree on that aspect. I'm not saying that you should prioritize bendy buses on 969. But you have to keep in mind that despite 969 not being as, how you say, board alike, not as extreme as in the case of 858, you have to realize that this is still a thing. Even though not as extreme, this is still a thing. This is still a thing, and this is still a thing. You see, like 856, 171, 859, 969, they need that many bus services that goes Yishun Avenue 5, and 969 just happens to be one of them. So yes, from Yishun to Chongpang, there is definitely short distance demand from here to here. And then there is another one. My friend stays along this route and they have observed it many times. I've observed it only like a few times, so his opinion matters more than mine. And what he said was that, okay, this is 969, and obviously there are people who take 904 as well, like this. But if you live along the black route, it's way more direct. And let me tell you, these people along this corridor who are going to Admiralty is just a few stops, and usually there can be quite a lot of people depending on like the time of day. They have a tendency to hog the lower deck, and I'm not even joking about this. This is the one reason why there is still a case, even though not the highest priority, there is still a case for bendy buses on 969. I'm not saying priority, I'm just saying just a mere case for it. This is way more significant than the buses going like this direction, because there's like a lot of them. And vice versa, if you're like commuting a few stops only, then yeah, this applies for the reverse direction as well. Yes, obviously, it's not like this thing has like 18 to 19 stops as in the case of like 858. But this one, it's still quite significant. Like you have Tampines Concourse, you have Tampines North, and then you have one MRT, two MRT, three MRT stations. And then from here to here, or here to here, but mostly here to here, they have the lower deck hogging tendencies. That alone already gives you reason to put many buses on this service during like split shift or something along those lines. Kind of why some people, even though I personally didn't really fully agree with them, I still understood where they're coming from, in the sense that, like, why does 67 need bendy buses? Simple. For the board alike thingy. It's just for like passenger flow. We've talked about traffic flow, but this one is about passenger flow. So again, it's the same thing. Although 67, obviously it's more suited for double-decker buses, you have to think about like the students at like Bukit Timah and stuff like that. Like, how do I put it? Even though this service is more suited for double-decker buses, the bendy bus rating isn't like 1 out of 10 or 2 out of 10. 67 could easily be a 3 or like 4 out of 10. I might have to adjust my rankings based on what my friend has said, but yeah. Although 67 isn't really relevant in this discussion, but what I'm trying to point out is that when you have demand patterns that are like this means that even though the bus service is like long distance, that doesn't necessarily mean that double deckers are like definitely the best fit for it, theoretically speaking. I'm talking about services like this. Okay, this one's technically medium distance, and then there's also, yeah, this is basically the category of services that they don't need to be prioritized in the sense that like if you don't have enough bendies, you do not put them on these services. These are like the second tier of priority. You don't just dump all the bendy buses on these services, because even though these services they are more suited for bendy buses as opposed to like double deckers, they are still survivable with double deckers in this case. This one, it's medium distance, short distance. You can tell why. I don't have to explain this one to you. I've already explained this one. This one is more of like Jalan Ahmad Ibrahim to Clementi Avenue 6, then to the MRT, Clementi MRT, as well as like uh Neon Poly, SUSS, SIM, and then there is like the schools at Bukit Timah as well. Then there is Trellis, there is Macpherson Estate, which has a lot of elderly residing there. And then I know typically it doesn't really have a lot of demand at Paya Lebar, but yeah, let's just stick to these. And then there's also another one, which is like, I'm just going to say Taman Jurong. I'm sorry, I don't have space. And then Lakeside as well. These this is like a rough indication, like I'm just trying to give you a rough picture as to why 154 actually, despite being a long distance service, has a case for bendy buses. And then I'm going to talk about 964. 964, the reason why it can survive with double decker buses is because there are people who are coming from this industrial estate. It's still quite a distance before they reach Admiralty, so they have a bigger tendency to like stay on the upper deck, whereas these people, they can afford to stay on the lower deck. And especially along this stretch, they have 913 as well. You have like bendies, you have like single decker buses, 913. Yes, this you don't have to wait for 964. You can just board 913. But this sector, they technically can choose to stay on the lower deck. Although I have heard some complaints from the residents here, they were like lamenting about how when 964 got rid of the bendy buses in favor of double deckers because they had to prioritize the bendy bus deployments on other bus services, like other feeder bus services. These people are complaining that, hey, I want the bendy buses back because I live along this stretch. There is no 913. 904 is too out of my reach. I need a bus from here to Admiralty Station and back as well. But maybe if they live a little bit further inside, then they might just take 904. But I'm just saying, from the complaints are coming from here and here, where they want to go to Admiralty. And even though 964 is survivable with double deckers because of split demand, upper deck here, lower deck here, it is still not too low on like the bendy bus suitability ranking. I forgot what I ranked them, but at worst 964 probably gets a 5 out of 10. 983, I think I ranked it like 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10. This one I think it was like 6 out of 10. And this one is 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10. Again, if I already have like limited bendy buses to throw around, I wouldn't put them on 154. I would put them on 240 instead, because I personally don't believe in the mixed fleet thingy. If it's either you run double deckers or run bendy buses. I know that there is like this arrangement whereby you run the bendy buses during weekday split shift and then any other time you just run the double deckers. Yes, for some services that can work. It's just that like I prefer for a bus service to use only bendies or only double decker buses. But I can give exceptions for like if there are special events, like let's say during the eves of public holidays, yes, I could put more bendy buses on 190, even though this one is more suited for double-decker buses. I could make this kind of special arrangements if I was in charge of the bus services. But the main point I want to make is that you guys really need to stop tunneling on whether a bus service is like long distance, medium distance, or short distance, and use it solely to determine whether a bus service needs bendy buses or doesn't need bendy buses. It's just a rough guideline, but you have to like look at the entire route yourself. And you don't just go like, oh, the bus uses expressway. I want to put double deckers on that bus service because people love to climb to the upper deck because of the expressway sector. Like I said previously, this one isn't really suited for bendy buses. This one isn't really suited for bendy buses. But then others like these are suited for bendy buses. The same thing can be said for like these kinds of bus services. And then which medium distance service I wouldn't put mini buses on. Again, just giving you guys examples, although I admit medium distance is not really it's not really easy to think of like examples off the top of your mind. And then long distance, obviously, basically whatever I just said. Technically, I could put like 983, 964 into this category as well. And then long distance, which routes are not good for bendy buses. I'll give you the most like prominent example. Okay, maybe 502, 518, and CDS. So yeah, you have to think about them like this. Don't just go tunnel vision on like, oh, long distance, oh, expressway. They are definitely more suited for double deckers. Cause this is like really oversimplified thinking in a bad way, I would say. Now, obviously, what should you prioritize? You should prioritize those bus services that serve schools as well as those feeder services when deploying bendy buses. This one isn't really the top priority. Again, just because a bus service is long does not mean that the bendy bus suitability ranking would be lower. It's just that in reality, when you're thinking of what to prioritize them on, it'll be lower. And yes, it is subjective. It's like you can feel free to disagree with like the services listed here or anything. It's okay, maybe accept this one, maybe accept this one. You can feel free to like disagree with everything else. It is just that like you guys need to stop like having this kind of like tunnel vision on like long distance or expressway archetype of services. But obviously, which one is higher on the priority list? There's like 18 to 19 stops in one direction. I may have miscounted, but that require the bendy buses alone. So obviously 858 is going to be the highest priority, but just because 858 is the highest priority doesn't necessarily mean that this thing has a low ranking for like bendy bus suitability in general. And the same logic can be applied to 67. If one day in the future, I don't know, somewhere along 67's route, there is like a... Okay, what I was trying to say is that if there is suddenly a surge in demand along any part of 67's route, you know, it's like the bendy bus suitability ranking, it might increase or it might decrease due to whatever reason, but in this context, it might even increase. And when that happens, there might be a new case use for like bendy buses on 67. It's the same thing when like, you know, 189, the route changed from like in 2014, I believe, the route changed from Kent Ridge to Clementi Avenue 1 loop. So the whole whether you should use SDDD or bendy bus, whatever suitability ranking, it'll definitely go up and down. Again, it's subjective, but I'm just saying things like these will make the ranking go up and down. Also because of Tampines Concourse and North, 969 used to be like express all the way inside Tampines Interchange, but the addition of concourse and north might change things as well. This is how I tie in every single thing. So I don't really know what else to say anymore, but please just stop tunnel visioning.